The day after I graduated from Officer Candidate School in Quantico, Virginia, I was bar hopping with two of my friends, and we were approached by a Japanese women's division inviting us to a Buddhist intro meeting. So we attended, and I began chanting that night, and I've been continuing to chant for the last 56 years. Originally, I enlisted at boot camp in September 1968, and essentially what you're taught as a recruit in the Marine Corps is to follow orders. I was only 21 when I got commissioned. It's a big transition at that age to be giving orders. You learn basic officer skills, basic tactics, basic leadership, and it's really hard within 1 year period of just being an obedient follower to becoming a leader. The first thing I chanted for was self-confidence. I knew I didn't have enough, especially going into combat, because any order could end up in my men getting wounded or even killed if I gave a bad order. So that really motivated me to chant. And I chanted as much as I could, went to as many activities as I could before being deployed to Vietnam in December of 1970. Survival is the number one thing on your mind when you're in a combat scenario. You're just thinking about getting through the next 24 hours. I just wanted to make it out alive. To me, number one was to protect my Marines and to bring them home safely. So that was foremost in my mind as a platoon leader. And my men were essentially 18 and 19-year-old teenagers straight out of high school or high school dropouts. So I had a pretty diverse platoon of 50 young men. There was a good friendship, really good bonds of brotherhood in my platoon. So we had no fighting amongst the men. No one, I was never threatened by fragging. Some enlisted fragged their officers because they didn't like them. Complacency was and boredom were the biggest enemies to keep my men aware. So if my men were aware and alert, we would be safe. So that's what I chanted for every day. In fact, I got the nickname of the Walking Buddha in my platoon. I knew every one of my 50 men by first name and last name, and I knew what their duties were. I always did everything with the men. Ate the same food as they did, carried the same ammo as they did. All of us packed probably 100 pounds of equipment around day in and day out. Going from our hilltop into Da Nang, about maybe an hour's drive, our driver hit a little trike full of civilians and just essentially ran over it, and the people just went flying. And I knocked on the window saying, "Hey, driver, aren't you going to stop?" Nope, just kept on going. So all I saw, I can still envision those people just flying through the air, and never knew what happened to them. Maybe 6 or 7 Vietnamese civilians. So that's horrible to watch. And there's other situations that are even gorier, but I don't really want to get into it. Vietnam really had no front lines. The enemy could be anywhere. It could be a little boy with a grenade. You never knew what was going to happen, so you just had to be alert all the time. Fear was a motivator to be alert and aware all the time. So I became a light sleeper. I'm still a light sleeper ever since Vietnam. So I developed hypervigilance, which blossomed into full PTSD. PTSD does bring on depression. So I masked that depression by drinking every day. I drank every day for 40 years. I was in denial of my PTSD for 40 years until my partner mentioned that, hey, you're having really bad night sweats and flashbacks. And it just happened as I was getting ready to retire. PTSD is is something that's real common with combat troops, whether you're in direct combat or non-combat roles. I'd say 70–80% of all combat troops probably develop some sort of PTSD, and most are they go undiagnosed. When I was undiagnosed, I was verbally abusive, not physically abusive, but violence starts with our words. So the great message of the SGI is that we respect everybody, and everybody has a Buddha nature. So everyone is worthy of respect.
What would you like the next generation to know about your firsthand experience of war?
That war is hell. We can only establish peace through dialogue by respecting everyone in front of us. So without prejudgment or prejudice. I've learned to become a lot more tolerant, and that's one of my loves of the SGI, is that we are a tolerant, friendship-based Gakkai family. I volunteered and entered the VA system and underwent 6 years of therapy, counseling, and even a in-hospital intensive PTSD treatment program. And consequently, given up drinking. I've been sober for 10 years, and I've learned to manage my PTSD. It's not that I've overcome it, but I manage it. So without the practice, I probably would have done something foolish in my younger years, and even in Nam, I probably would have made bad decision to get my men wounded or killed, myself included. So I attribute my good fortune to my practice. I think the most healing process has been dealing with members, because all members have problems, and we spend our whole lifetime changing karma into mission. We all have karma, and we don't know what our karma is until we hit whatever situation that we face in life. So in my case, at a young age, I faced war. Is probably the worst human experience that anyone can experience. To see people get hurt or to be killed for no really good reason except our politicians sending young men to war. I learned to love chanting. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo is really the joy of all joys. So I've learned how to chant joyfully, and I've learned how to focus with vision. So after I was able to bring my men back safely, then I applied the same strategy to doing activities. And I love doing shakabuku. Shakabuku is propagating the mystic law, where we teach people how to chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo for their own happiness and overcome their personal sufferings. I think the battleground for Kozen Rufu is the district discussion meeting. By talking with the person in front of us every day and befriending them first, we can encourage them to chant sooner or later. For example, my group leader, I shakabuku'd him at one of my VA counseling sessions. After about 3 or 4 sessions, I said, I've got something that I think you need to try, and it's going to settle your PTSD down. And ever since I took him, brought him to chant, he's been chanting ever since, and also has introduced his wife to the practice. I attended the LA convention in my final month of active duty, so I was 24, and I'd never met Sensei prior to that. And when I first spotted him down the street in the viewing stand, I just felt his dynamic energy, his life force, from maybe even 100 feet away. And all of a sudden, I also felt immediately the sense of knowing him from the past, like a favorite uncle. And then on my 30th anniversary in November of 1999, my experience about the Vietnam War appeared in the New Human Revolution, Volume 11. Until that time, I had never shared my experiences with the members. I don't think any of us Vietnam vets ever talked about our war experiences with the members. So that was an acknowledgement on Sensei's description and analysis of war in general, where he basically took the peaceful high road. And I still don't understand how my experience was included, other than I chanted sincerely for my men, and we all returned safely. A handful of us were selected to be part of an honor guard in our dress uniforms of our various services. We got to escort Sensei to put a wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier at the National Cemetery of the Pacific in Honolulu, Hawaii. At the tomb, he did Sancho, so I raised my hands and also did Sancho along with Sensei. The national anthem was played, of course. I did the hand salute, but afterwards I chanted with Sensei. And then immediately after that ceremony, in the official guest book, I was standing behind him when he wrote in the guest book, "For the repose of all the fallen on both sides of the Great War," which refers to World War II. As disciples, we select our mentors. Selecting Sensei as my mentor in life as a YMD, I've learned to study his writings and to follow his example. And essentially, I've learned to trust him 100% without any doubt whatsoever. So trusting my mentor in life has enabled me to overcome all my sufferings and actually achieve a sense of true happiness that I've never known prior to my practice. So it's an evolution. I think human revolution is a journey and not just a goal. We're doing our human revolution until the very final days of our lives. The human revolution is his legacy to us on how to live a good life and a life dedicated for the sake of Kozen Rufu. And that is, I think, my ultimate mission, my ultimate legacy, is to foster our youthful successors. We'll always be teachers for the younger generation. Less speaking and better behavior through inspiration